Welcome, everybody. That's right. It's the last show of 2018, the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. Superfan editions tonight with Dave Jackson. That's right.
Hey, everybody.
Somebody's got the show running in the background. They might want to turn it off. There we go. So we are live tonight with
my headphones on.
Yeah, you might want to definitely do that. We are the show running in the background. They might want to turn it off. There we go.
Yeah. So, there we go. Let me get my headphones in.
Okay, there we are.
I think we're all good now.
There we go. There we are. Coming from the live compound. That's right. Here's Sasquatch Central, the new place. We are deep after the Christmas spirit. Is December 26th. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas or a joyous Noel or a Festivus or a fantastic Festivus or a gigantic Yule or whatever it was that you celebrated non-discriminatory with other consenting adults or not.
Or so.
Right. I'm so glad you are with us here tonight. There, that guy over there, that's Mr. Dave Jackson, and he is with us out of New York State. And not the Big Apple, right? We're talking, what part of New York are you in there, Dave?
Currently right now, Schenectady.
Schenectady. That sounds like a Scandinavian Connect 4 game.
Technically Rotterdam.
Okay, and what part of the state does that put you in?
Schenectady County.
That doesn't help me, buddy. Okay, New York's a really big place. So does it put you in the northeast, the northwest, the southeast, the southwest section of New York?
I'll put it this way. I am northwest of Albany, the capital of New York State.
Okay, there we go. That helps put us a location down for people to understand. All right, we are talking about Sasquatch. Tell us, Dave, what initially got you into the subject of Sasquatch?
Well, it originally when I used to see Arthur C. Clarke. When I was
I'm Arthur C. Clarke, and this is in search of crap. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. You know, the crystal skulls and all that. But every once in a while at my grandparents', I'd see shows about Sasquatch, like Animal X. And I'm 34, so you got to figure I was probably about 7 years old. And I just got interested in the subject of things that could potentially be out there, but may not exist. Loch Ness Monster, Sasquatch, Chupacabra. Pretty much anything. That got me into the realm of cryptozoology.
Awesome. Yeah. And see, now me being a decade older than you are, I was born after the 67 Patterson film, but Bigfoot wasn't really mainstream at all. It wasn't really accepted. Well, it really wasn't. It still isn't really accepted by most people, but even in the circles that it is accepted in, Bigfoot was kind of already there in your world. By the time you came along, there were already stories and books besides the Patterson and Gimlin film that came along in the later 70s and the early 80s.
That's what hooked me. The Patterson film. That's what hooked me as a kid. And I remember being scared of that.
I remember thinking it was a monster. Yeah.
Yep. I remember being scared of it at first. But as I grew up, I'm like, it's not real. It's not real.
Well, what was it in your world that changed it from it not being real to being real?
Evidence. Well, more witness testimony, more exposure about the subject of Sasquatch that got me more and more interested in the subject, especially when, Jeff Meldrum didn't have gray hair.
When he used to interrupt Renee DeHinden for not calling Krantz doctor.
Yep, Grover Krantz, Renee DeHinden, Charles Fort. That I started reading about that as I got older, and I just got, and on top of that, me being half Cherokee, I started reading about my own legends. And that's what kind of put me in where I am today.
Because when you look back at the legend of Sasquatch, it goes far beyond white man's presence in America. It goes far beyond beyond the continent of America. Through the years, we've done different studies around the world of Sasquatch type creatures, and they pretty much exist everywhere. Some are monsters, some are benign creatures of luck. It just depends on where you are. But what was it in your world then after the acceptance of the idea that Sasquatch might be real? Why don't you tell us one of your stories? Have you encountered such of the creature that made you believe for sure?
I have never myself had an encounter with one. No, not at all. But my fiance Amanda had a specific encounter in a hotspot. I've heard howls. I've heard just secondary evidence. That's all it is. It was secondary evidence. Howls, leaving out gifts that for some reason disappear. And I used to think, okay, well, maybe it could be nocturnal animals. And I just kept trying and trying and trying. But I've never had a single face-to-face experience with what you would call a Sasquatch that I could say at all. But my fiance did. And the first story is what I like to call Jamie's Creek. And I don't want to give away the location, but it is near to where the secondary story will come into play that I have to bring up, which I believe I was faked. But this was way before that, or way after that. Sorry, I misspoke. I was setting up camp and trying to get a fire going. And Amanda went out to get more firewood, set up the tent, because her and I like to go camping all the time. And she went out to get firewood with just a flashlight. And this is a heavily wooded area, which is way north of where I lived at the time. So there was a lot of woods around. And I would put these little hunting tacks, because I hunt. I didn't hunt this past year, though. I hunt, but so I know pretty much everything around New York State. Even mountain lions. So I'm sitting back, I'm stirring the fire, and Amanda comes flying back, looking white as a ghost. And she said that she had shined her light to her right and saw 3 pairs in different areas of different heights of red eyes. And she is a staunch disbeliever of Sasquatch. She thinks it's all a bunch of hooey. She doesn't believe it exists. But she saw those 3 pairs of red eyes. And when she did, it scared her to the point, because they were so far off the ground. And I didn't hear any owls or anything going off at that time of night. I believe it was around 11 o'clock at night. So 11:30. So I'm sitting back saying, okay, just sit down, catch your breath, just put the firewood down. Don't do anything. Just sit down. And she was so freaked out about that particular incident. And I tried to tell her it could have been owls, because owls are known to have a red eye shine when shown upon by a flashlight in darkness. I tried to push it off on that just to calm her down. But throughout the time that when we got into the tent, I kept hearing footsteps that seemed to circle where our camp was. And it sounded bipedal. And it got to the point where She was so rattled that we left the tent and everything behind. I scrambled to put out the fire. I wasn't necessarily freaked out, but I was enough because she got me going.
Right.
She got me going. So we walked 2.5 miles through the woods because every 50 some odd feet, I'd put a tack that would reflect light on a tree. So I'd be able to find my way to my camping spot every time. We haven't been back since. We have never camped there since. She was so rattled, she got me upset because I was pretty much sleeping. But all I heard was it sounded like people circling the tent. That's the best way I can explain
it. Oh, that's kind of creepy if you ask me. Yes.
That's the best way I can explain it truthfully. Is it sounded like a couple of people walking around in circles. And I have a hard time sleeping, especially in the woods, unless, you know, I hear the natural sounds of the woods, you know, like peeper frogs from, you know, upstate New York or anything like that, or, you know, crickets. But when it's dead silent, that's when I have a real hard time sleeping.
Now, I know during one of our campouts, Jonathan, one of the hikers, one of the guys that come up from South California, he described that same type of thing in the middle of the night. That something seemed to like come in and walk around his tent a couple of times and then kind of walked off. I was like, and you didn't yell out for the rest of us that were sleeping like, 15 feet from you? Yeah, but he, it's like, hey, dude, I mean, a little heads up next time would be appreciated. Don't leave us hanging out with, animals walking around camp. You should probably call out, go away, bear, or something so that we know that there's something out there. But yeah, that's definitely creepy. Hey, this is a good spot. Why don't we go ahead and take a short break? And we'll have a quasi from our quasi-scientist, Mr. Dean Cooper. Cooper for the evening. So let's see here. I have that quasification picture of his here somewhere. And enjoy this quasi-theory from our quasi-scientist. And now, quasi-theories from a quasi-scientist with your host, Dean Cooper.
It's gone viral. Viruses are everywhere. There are 10 to the 33rd power of these teensy buggers on the planet. Just the weight of those in the ocean equals 75 million blue whales. They're in your gut tract, in dirt, in food. They're even on the fringes of space, way high up in the atmosphere. Most viruses are not pathogens. We don't even know what the hell most viruses do, other than that they exist. Chunks of viral DNA make up a good part of the chordate genome. All of us creatures with anything like a backbone are chordates. This viral DNA in us is pretty much from viruses called retroviruses. They get in a cell and hijack the DNA, sticking their little genome into the DNA of the host cell to make the host cell crank out more of the virus when the cell does its usual business. Now, retroviruses are messy little buggers when it comes to reproducing themselves. When a new little retrovirus pops out, it frequently has a bit of the host DNA as part of its genome, which then gets jammed into the DNA of a new host. The interesting part of the show happens when the retrovirus attacks an egg or a sperm cell, and the egg or a sperm cell gets lucky. And I do mean in the naughty nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more kind of lucky. The newly formed chordate progeny now has some of whatever that virus has been in before stuck into it, which can be made more interesting if that virus has gone and jumped species, like from pigs to birds to humans to, well, you get my drift, genetic drift. Important things are known to have come from such retroviral shenanigans. Things like how placentas form during pregnancy in different mammals, where similar things occur but were caused by chunks of DNA inserted by different retroviruses in different species of mammals. Geneticists and microbiologists are really just beginning to look into this. Here's where I go all quasi on the subject. I've been thinking that viruses are small enough to be quantum entangled. That is, you can produce a state in a group of them such that if you tickle one of them, the others will start giggling too. What you do to one of them happens to the other ones as well. I therefore Googled it and found out that I'm not the only one who thinks so. There are scientists actually doing research, real experiments on the hypothesis, and there's evidence that it really happens. Now, if viruses are a major force driving evolution, and they apparently are, and they can be quantum entangled, which they apparently can, and quantum entanglement works through a higher order reality or dimension, which is what theoretical physics currently thinks, is there a higher order intelligence or intelligences doing some of that quantum linking? When I look at evolutionary history, I see life going from exceedingly simple organisms to more complex ones, to a highly complex, highly interdependent system, which is the opposite of what the theory of entropy says should happen. And by higher order intelligences, I do not mean ancient aliens. This has been Dean Cooper, quasi-scientist, enlightening you with my quasi-theory of the week. You may read the text of this on my blog at bydean.com. It's BHAIDIN.com.
Well, there you have it. Quantum entanglement of viruses. I mean, that's pretty much how the egg came about. You know, yes, if anybody ever asks you if you know what came first, the chicken or the egg, you can say it was definitely the egg. And when they ask you how that is, you can simply tell them it was laid by the proto-chicken. You didn't think chickens just burst into friggin' being, did you? There was something, chickens were something before they were chickens, and that's what laid the first chicken egg. And it was probably because of a virus protein. But I digress. Hey, let's go back out to the hangout here. I know, Don. I know. I'm trying to get the dates, buddy. The camp out. I can't get approval for my vacation until January. The tentative dates are going to be either June 12th through the 15th or June 19th through the 22nd. Neither of those are a holiday weekend, and it's actually 2 weeks before the 4th of July. So I'm trying to make it for the 12th to the 15th. That's when I would like the big camp out to be in the Pi Valley this year. I won't know for sure until we flip to the new year and we can get our vacation approved. Otherwise, I would say yes for sure. And plus, I need to make the reservations for the campground. But that is it. I'd like to June 12th to the 15th of 2019 is hopefully going to be the big camp out in the Pi Valley. If not, it will be the weekend after. But most likely, it will be the 12th to the 15th. Okay, with that said, back to the hangout shout outs here because there's where we at. Krista Monster Truck Gal, there she is. She's hanging out with us tonight. Mr. Rodney Dupree, he's always in the place to be, of course. Tim McCune, there he is. He's hanging out with us as well as Chin. Gotta get that off my microphone. Let's see here. Hunter's in the house tonight. How you doing there, champ? Hey, that weirdo Dave Jackson was talking to people out there, too. Look at that guy. Lance Windsor. There's the man, the myth, the legend himself. Dean Cooper. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. Scroll down here a little bit more because I came in a little bit late. There's Mr. Don Rife. Hello there to everybody out in your way, sir. Timmy Nagar. Yeah, that's the way it says it. I'm not making it up. Hey, champ, glad you are with us as well. Hey, I look white, so I have to be really careful about saying words like that because, I ain't trying to get shot. Natalie Smith, there she is. She's hanging out with us tonight. Spike Jeff, there he is too. Jonathan Doty, hello, sir. Glad you are with us as well. Serious Sasquatch. Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious, and don't call me Shirley. Let's see here. There's the Forest Cop hanging in from New Mexico. Glad you are with us, sir. Let's see. There's more people in here as well. There, Keith Harden, man, Keith Nash is what I want to call you from Paul, but I'll try and stick with your real name because I don't want to offend anybody. I see that there's some crackpots in the house tonight. There, Obsidian Radio, he's hanging out tonight. Hello there, champ. I saw. Did they get booted? No, I just must not be down far enough here to see him because I could have sworn David Paldies was in the chat room. I kid you not. He's a religious observing watcher of the Squatcher Sounds podcast. The real one. I don't know who this guy is, but the real one watches all the time. You would be surprised. I can't prove it, but I know for a fact. I'll mention his name and watch. I'll be contacted tomorrow by his henchman, which I think is just another account of his that he likes to hassle people with. And by the way, I'll openly admit it again. David Paldies, you are called out, sir. I am challenging you to an open debate on Sasquatch anytime, anywhere, any place in Northern California. You name the place, I'll be there, and we can openly debate human mommies and weirdo unknown ape daddies making Sasquatch in the world. So you bring it on, pal. Anytime, any place, and we will set that up. There, Sam Squanch Rivera's made it to the house. How you doing there, champ? Glad you are with us. Eric Wright is in the house as well. Moving on up, there's David Paul. You see, he doesn't believe. I told you who doesn't believe. Everybody believes in Reverend Jeff. Karen, Rob, so glad you sorry how you had a bad week. Well, here's a big shout out to you. I hope you have a better week this week. I'm glad you're here with us as well. Donald Fuller, how you doing there, champ? Glad you are with us as well. I know there's more people in here. There's more people in here, but I can't get there because I'm slow. Natalie Smith, if I didn't say hi to you earlier, I'm certainly saying hello to you now. The Reverend Matthew Gaines, Reverend. Dean's a Reverend. I'm a Reverend. I can't. A couple other people have been ordained since we started this mess. Your Hobo Man 5 is checking in with us as well. And we're getting close to the bottom. So if you haven't said hi to me, I don't know you're here. Sue Yoder, hello there. Glad you are with us as well. Reverend Matt from Wallapun, Pennsylvania. So glad you are with us as well. Kevin K420, evening to you, sir, from Santa Cruz. That's right. God bless. Prop 65. More cannabis was given away as Christmas presents in California this year than any year before it. So saith the man. Inhale deep and exhale. That's right. That's the way it goes. So glad everybody is with us here tonight. Okay, back at it with Mr. Dave Jackson. I know that was a little bit of a break, but Mr. Dave, all right, pal. Now you said you had a second story you'd like to tell the audience.
Well, it's kind of a story of how I believe I was faked, but I'm not sure. That's the problem. I'm not entirely sure if I was faked or not. Okay, if you want to show a couple of the pictures, that'll set the stage. I think I might have a little bit of a lag on my end.
Here's a picture. Here's the first picture here. So we're looking at a chain link fence.
Yeah, that was the general area. And that one in particular, where you see a little barely something circle that's on it.
Yeah, there's something dark there in the center.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was a person that was faking me. When I was younger, now this took place in 2000. I had stupidly mentioned getting off the school bus, as we all did as a kid. I was walking with a childhood friend and her father. And her father got interested in what I had to say, because I was talking about my interest in Sasquatch and Bigfoot and all that. And then one day I found footprints, because I used to play in the woods all the time as a kid. I was in the dirt, the mud, the water. I was in everywhere. And I believe he actually went out to an area which I think he knew I would always frequent. And he must have taken his shoes off or something, but it doesn't quite make sense because one is bigger than the other. And if you could show the cast photos and me, he contacted Bill Braun from the Bigfoot Research Organization in upstate New York.
There we go.
Yeah, I have a bit of a lag on my end, but it's all right. I'm sure everybody else is fine. Yep, he had taken the cast, and then sent them back with his wife Linda, and there was no mid-tarsal break. And so they deemed it as a hoax. And after that fact, Don, I'm going to call him Don, had tried to get at William Braun and Bruce Hollenbeck and saying that I was the one faking it as a teenager. When I was just interested in the subject, I'm like, oh my God, these look like Bigfoot footprints. These look like the casts I see, on TV. So one thing led to another. And I was contacted by Bill Braun over the phone multiple times. And he just pretty much wrote me off. He believed this guy. He believed Don. He's the guy that is left of Bill Braun in that photograph. That I truly believed that he had faked these. But the thing that bothers me is that both footprints do not look the same size. He's the guy next to me while I'm holding the casts. And if anybody's watching, you'll know that's a younger me. And that's my old friend, Tim, who's standing next to Bill.
And you have the San Francisco hat on?
No, it was Mets.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Now I see it. Yeah. Now, yeah. Right. Your buddy had the Yankees hat on.
Yep, Tim loved the Yankees. I love the Mets. And the guy next to me in the middle of between Tim and I, between the two baseball caps.
Who's the other guy? Who's Fonzie?
Oh, the guy on the left?
Yeah.
That's William Braun from the BFRO.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, he was younger then. If you look up him up, that's him. He was on Monster Quest with Bigfoot in New York when they investigated all the Whitehall, New York stories.
Mm-hmm. Is that the one where they had the dancing monkeys in the trees?
Yes, the baby swinging.
Yeah, I remember. And then the leaves that were swaying back and forth on the branch. Oh, look, you can see it's an animal. No.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Anyhow, sorry, I digress. Yeah, boy, look at that. That's 2 decades ago now, man. Young whippersnapper of Dave Jackson's been involved in Bigfoot for a long time.
I have. I have. And I got more serious after that. There were a couple of occasions with Don that happened afterwards that may have been legal, may have not been.
Well, maybe you shouldn't discuss things that you're not sure whether they're legal or not. Live on YouTube. That's probably the best policy I've heard at the moment, for sure. Hey, we're getting down here to the end of the show here. What do you want to wrap up with tonight? What's the idea for the future for Dave Jackson as far as Bigfoot is concerned?
Well, the future for me is I didn't want to say anything, but this coming 2019, I'm planning on doing a documentary.
That's awesome. Tell us. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, I have a team. I have a team set up, and Lance is helping me out with it. And other than that, because I have nothing to show for it, I don't want to say anything yet. But obviously, I will bring that up at some point in the future through the lounge or through whatever. I'm not out to make money. This is the thing. I want to just simply do a documentary on the subject. And it will involve Lance from Canada. It will involve many other people I've spoken to from Whitehall and all that. And it's kind of going north. I'll put it that way.
Be very cool to see. Well, we're definitely going to be looking forward to that. And with that, we'll end it on a high note. You know, that's awesome to hear, because documentaries are always fun things to have. I did mine on the Bluff Creek Project. I'm kind of due to do an in-depth one again. 2019, I'm going to be doing a lot of filming. I'm going to be doing a lot of new things for 2019 as well. I haven't announced what next year is going to be about yet, and I might as well go ahead and announce that now. 2019, the Squatchers Lounge podcast is going to be about Bigfoot casts and trackways, and what we see in the casts and what we don't see in the casts. We're going to take an examination of Sasquatch casting across the country. From all the different picture aspects that we have now. We've got 3D laser scanned in images from Cliff Barackman, from Dr. Meldrum, from a lot of people around the world. We have examples of casts that we can take examples of and show that over the course of the next year. Not last year, we did Voices in the Night of Unidentified Animals, and we have so many examples of them that nobody's been able to tell me what they are. We've literally put forth hundreds of unknown animal calls on this show, and no one's identified even one. So we have unknown animal calls out there. This year, we're going to look at the unknown trackways that are out there in America as well. So with that, we're going to wind up this episode of the Squatchers Lounge podcast with another season 1 Bigfoot campfire story. So check this one out, and we will see you next week. Don't forget, patreon.com/cryptid corner is going to be the only place you can get the new story content. $1 general admission. That's right. You get every single new story posted there for $1. Plus, right now, there's a Bigfoot campfire story up there for Christmas that is open to the public, that'll remain there until the 10th of January, and then it will revert back to patrons only. I want to thank you, Dave, so much for being here, buddy, and we'll have to do this. We will definitely have to do this again another night. With that, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week, and may the Squatch be with you. What the hell is that? I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. Welcome to another episode of Bigfoot Campfire Stories. This prospector went panning for gold near Nome, Alaska. It wasn't just the grizzly bears he had been on the watch for. Let's hear his story. Hi, I'm Larry, and I'm a prospector. That's how I introduce myself around town in most places. You never know when you're going to get a gold story that just might be true. My father and grandfather were both gold prospectors, and I was born into the life, and I love every minute of it. I decided to take a trip up to Nome, Alaska to prospect in the shadow of my granddad in 49. He had told me how to find a small creek called Bear Creek that was difficult to get to, but should still be full of gold. So I decided I'd spend the summer camping and prospecting while living some off the land. I'd arrived in Nome and bought a quad to use for the summer, a truck with a small trailer to haul it all around, and to get in as far as I could get. Well, I was in town for a few days before setting out, and anytime I mentioned Bear Creek, the locals would either laugh at me or cringe, depending on their background. I finally asked one white fella why he laughed when I said it. He replied that I was chasing legend gold nuggets and that they don't exist, and that no one can get to Bear Creek and actually prospect it. Everyone runs away shortly after getting there. I mentioned it in the butcher shop, and one of the natives cringed, so I asked, and she told me that they were the wise old hairy ones that lived out that way, and white men should not go there. If you do, the hairy ones won't be happy. Of course, I couldn't take either serious, but I did go to the pawn shop and buy a 30-06 rifle and a 327 revolver. I guess better safe from the grizzlies. Well, I gathered up my camping gear and enough food for about 10 days and set off to find Bear Creek. My grandfather's directions didn't help very much, but thankfully, with the help of some locals, I found the trail that would lead me up to my quarry. Well, I drove the truck up the trail as far as it would go, and I made it about a mile up the creek before I could go no more. So I got the quad off the back of the trailer, loaded it up with supplies, and started off-road. The trail was no problem for the quad, but this was big, lonely country. Not a soul I've seen since I left the road, and not a sign of people either, not even garbage. I finally found a bend in the creek I liked, so I got out some tools and panned a few yards of dirt. Sure enough, there were colors in the pan, enough to make me smile and decide to set up camp. There were plenty of wildlife. With it being summer, there were fish in the creek. There were wild edibles everywhere. With this being the case, and a giant case of ham and beans I brought along, I could pan this whole bend out before I have to move again. So I went ahead back, grabbed the chainsaw and the axe, and set up a small camp nearby. I set up a nice lean-to with some cut poles and a tarp. I built a fire pit and a spit over the top with a little grill off to the side. A blow-up mattress and a sleeping bag were about all the comforts I had brought with me, but it'll make do for some comfy sleep. I gathered up a bunch of firewood and I set it to cure near the pit, and I grabbed the quad and went back to the stream to catch some fish and run a few more yards of river. A couple of small cutthroats were enough for me to eat tonight, so I set the basket in the creek to cool and went back to gold panning. Well, the night came very late as I forgot it was nearly eternal day here in the north, and around 11 p.m. I noticed how late it had actually gotten, so I went back to camp with my fish. I gutted the fish and roasted them over the fire. The smell was amazing. The drips just sizzled in the fire as they hit, and I was eating good tonight. I cleaned up after dinner and turned in about 1 a.m. for some sleep. The area was strange and the noises were alien to my ears, but I fell right off to sleep, and I seemed to have slept forever. I woke the next morning well rested about 10 a.m., and I put a can of ham and beans on the fire for breakfast. I took care of that morning ritual. I noticed a big pile of bear crap on the other side of the clearing from my camp, and I thought I'd better make sure everything's put away before I head out. I ate up the food and cleaned up once more, then hung the food sack from a nearby tree and setting off for the creek. I stayed nearly the whole day until late afternoon and went back to camp about 5 p.m. I figured no need to kill myself out here. Upon arriving back to camp, I found my whole setup is nearly wrecked. The tarp had been ripped down from the poles, my food bag ripped down from the tree and trampled all over. The fire had seemed to be covered over by dirt. All the food cans were still there, but something had been chewing at them in an attempt to get them open. It seemed to be very strange for bear behavior, but I just fixed things as needed and put the camp back together. Well, I relit the fire and grabbed one of the gnarled cans and worked with what I had left. I had a strange feeling about me the rest of the evening and decided I'd turn in early to do a better job tomorrow. Well, when I first awoke, it was dark, very dark, and the noises that startled me were aggressive. I was sure I had an angry bear coming in, and I didn't care about my fire. I grabbed the rifle and I slid out of the lean-to and shined the flashlight around the camp. And that's when I first realized this was no bear. I froze as my light lit up the creature, like anything I'd ever seen before. Standing on two legs, covered in hair, and huffing and chafing its teeth at me in anger. I flashed it in the eyes, and it screamed like an angry animal and rushed directly towards me. I fumbled with the rifle, but it reached me long before I could fire and shoved me to the ground. I stumbled over towards the quad, so I went for it. I got right on it and started right up. I put it in gear and I mashed the thumb throttle. And as I looked back to see the camp, I could see the creature covering over the fire once more with dirt, and then the sound of the camp just crashing all about it. Well, I hit the throttle again, and I flew as fast as I could back down to the truck. I put the quad on the back, didn't bother to tie it down, jumped in the truck. I drove straight back to town, found that the cafe was still open. I went inside, sat down, and ordered a cup of coffee. Before my coffee had arrived, I noticed the same old native lady that had warned me just happened to be in the cafe. And by my state, she looked over at me and said, "See, the hairy ones don't like people going in there. Now go home." Well, I drank 5 cups of coffee and went back to the hotel. The next morning, I had the nerve to talk to the guys at the gun shop about what happened, and their response was not what I expected. They told me simply that this is not the first time they've heard an outsider tell such tales, and simply dismissed it out of hand. Well, that was enough for me. I sold them back the guns I had purchased from them. I went back to the hotel, packed up what was left of my stuff. I caught a flight home late that night. My off-the-grid prospecting days behind me now. It was definitely the craziest thing that had ever happened. You know when the stories are just there to scare you or just keep you away, and yet other times the stories are true? Well, that's what this poor prospector ran into. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you. That's right, everybody. A little bit of late shout outs. Late to the party tonight. Michael Bird, Mr. Hot Diggity Dog. He showed up a little bit late. I can't forget my boy Christopher. That's right. Put a little bit of ketchup on them vegetables and you'll be just fine, along with Squatch Box showing up late to the party, but it's always a party because a West Coast party don't stop. That's right. So glad that everybody was here and hanging out with us tonight. We'll see you next week. After Hangout, I'll post a link in just a moment. Thanks so much, and may the Squatch be with you.